Hi, everyone, and welcome to What to Read today. Today, I've got a very interesting book for you, and in part, it is interesting. In part, it is also tragic in the sense that it brings us into contact or into reality with how people's life tend to turn out in a way that they haven't anticipated for, and they are left with the insurmountable task of having to figure it out and having to navigate it the best they can. And the book for today is this beautiful book, The Lost Boy by Ayik Deng. Ayik, or Daniel, as he introduces himself sometime in the book, is from South Sudan, one of the newest created countries in the world. From Sudan, they had to break apart due to ongoing conflict that lasted over 2 decades. The Lost Boy is one of those books you read that really tells you people come to a stage in life where there's just no way out. You have a story of a young man growing up back home in Sudan before it became South Sudan, and life was simple, living in the village, and just the basic joys of a young child with the parents, the siblings, the grandparents running around chasing animals. And then the war breaks out and his life is turned upside down. The most horrific part of this book is learning how children as young as 10, maybe even younger, are recruited to join a war. Tales of a child soldier. So this is his story, how he became a child soldier alongside thousands, maybe hundreds of other young boys from South Sudan. And some of the horrible things he had to do, some of the getting involved in fighting. He had access to a gun at that very young age. But more so, it's what this experience did to him. Even after the war had ended, even after his family and himself had relocated to Australia to start a new life, he had to endure PTSD just from that recurring nightmare at a very young age, asking a child to fight, to kill, even for adults. Adults who go to war end up having PTSD. Talk more of a child who at that age should be outside playing and having fun and just being a boy. Ah, it is well written. There's a lot of humor, but there is also a lot of reflection. And this book, as usual, I'd like to say who should read this book. If you'd like to know a little bit about how the war in Sudan started and how it led to the newest country, South Sudan, being created, this is a good overview of that. If you want to see how people come to be who they are, or people are faced with very difficult tasks, and why we need compassion and empathy for people's story, then this is the book. I couldn't help thinking, similar to the book I had reviewed the last time, No Going Back by Lisa Kennedy. You remember this one? Both books, the both of them, tell a story of how people end up on the wrong side of the law, just because they are trying to survive. They are trying to do the best they can with the situation they have at hand, not because they want to be on the other side of the law. They just had to survive. So in this book as well, you'll see how his family, or rather him in this instance, were given a new opportunity. They moved to Australia. He started to struggle at school due to partly his poor English and inability to communicate with other kids at school. No one understood him. He was wrongly diagnosed, and then he was put on medication that simply made life worse for him. He began to peddle drugs. He became a drug peddler. He had access to so much cash and money than he needed. And on, his life began to go downhill until at some point, yeah, he decided to turn his life around. And then having to meet with, and this is the most disheartening part of the book, having to meet with one of the rebel soldiers who had tormented him, who had put him through so much pain during his time as a child soldier, having to meet this person face to face here in Australia. And he forgave the guy. They hugged it out, and he said, I forgive you. I cried. I cried. But anyway, this is a book I will say makes you have a little bit more compassion for people. Sometimes we hear of all the stories of people who have done very negative things. And while at some point we think they should be locked up for what they have done, sometimes their childhood and the situation surrounding their lives should make us pause, should really make us pause and ask, did they ever have a chance? Especially for many of us who life seem to be pretty okay. Um, did they have a chance? Could they really have done anything? If you are recruited to fight in a war at 10 years of age, given a gun, you had to see people die. You had to play dead. You had to shoot at people, use grenades at 10 years of age, and this went on for 2, 3 years. I think we can all agree this person, in some way, form, or shape, will be damaged. That's not to say we give excuse for everything they've done. All I'm saying is we have compassion for their story and how they got to be where they are. So, what to read? The Lost Boy, Tales of a Child Soldier. I recommend. I read it. I cried at some point. But yeah, all in all, it was a good read. I will recommend to anyone wanting to read and see how people's life or stories come to be, what it is, and having some compassion for these stories. So until next time on What to Read Today, keep well and keep reading. You take care now. Bye.